This is 219 Football, and today I'm going to be going over my 2025 NFL draft grades for every single team. Every single team going to be giving a letter grade for their first round pick and their just overall draft as well. So if you guys do enjoy this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more NFL and draft content. And yeah, I know a lot of people say draft grades are useless, but this is more of a tool to look back on in a few years as to how we thought the draft was going to shake out for all these teams and how it actually shook out. But initial draft grades, I think, are also good for tempering expectations for the NFL season and these rookies. So we're going to get started with the AFC North, and I'm going to start off with the Cleveland Browns, who ended up trading out of the number 2 pick down to pick 5 with the Jacksonville Jaguars and selected Mason Graham, interior defensive lineman out of Michigan. Graham was my 6th ranked player, so this is about exactly where I feel like he should have gone, and they trade down to do it. I personally probably would have stuck and took Travis Hunter, but they do get a nice haul for it as well, which is really nice, which is factored into the grade for that first round pick. B+, very good pick in my opinion. I personally probably would have gone offensive line just because I think that's a bigger need right now, especially at left tackle. But they go with probably just best player available with Mason Graham, and you can't really fault them for that. So outside of that first round pick, second round starts off with a player that I don't really like as much as a lot of people. Carson Schweschinger out of UCLA, the linebacker. I was significantly lower on him than a lot of people. I do not think he should have gone in the second round, much less the first pick outside of the first round. But he could be a decent player. I don't see the upside as a run defender with him. And then Quinshon Judkins could be a decent starting running back. I do think this is early for Judkins as well. But the first round pick I really like. Then the 2 picks after that, I'm not a real big fan of, but they redeem it by getting Harold Fannin with pretty good value in the 3rd round. And then I do think they did reach a little bit on Dillon Gabriel. I think they got Dylan Sampson right where he should have been taken. And then they cap it off with Shedeur Sanders, which under normal circumstances would have been an absolute steal in the 5th round. But I think with the Browns, it was very clear that he was not in their plans and that ownership pushed to take Shedeur in the 5th round. But anyways, Harold Fannin can be a decent player for them. I think Harold Fannin had a 2nd round grade for me. I thought he's just one of the best receiving tight ends in this draft, obviously. I liked him a lot. He might take a little bit to get going, and so they pair him with David Njoku, who is also more of a pass-catching tight end, but we'll see. Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round I think is just early. I don't think he has the upside really that you're looking for in a quarterback in the 3rd round to be a starter. I personally don't see him as that, but Dylan Sampson in the 4th round. I never really got the 2nd round hype with Dylan Sampson, but in the 4th round, I could definitely jive with it. He is a more developmental running back prospect with pretty good tools out of Tennessee. And then Shedeur obviously has been the talk of the town. I have gotten exhausted from all the Shedeur Sanders talk. I mean, I've probably heard his name a million times over the past week. He fell in the draft due to just a lot of things, really. I don't really want to get into all of it, but he fell, probably in the biggest draft fall we have ever seen in the NFL draft. A projected 1st round pick at quarterback falling all the way down to the 5th round is just insane. And honestly, the fact that ownership pushed this pick and he would have fallen even further is just insane. But they pick up Shedeur Sanders. He has short-term starting upside for the Cleveland Browns if he can battle it out in camp, beat out Gabriel, beat out all the other backup quarterbacks they have on that roster. We'll see what Shedeur Sanders does with this situation, but he has a great opportunity to prove what he can do. I don't think he should have fallen this far at all. I had a 2nd round grade on him. I thought I was low on him for saying I wouldn't take him in the 1st round, but so they get Shedeur Sanders. Final grade, I do go with a B-. I liked the start, didn't like the 2nd round really, but I liked their first pick in round 3 and then their 2 picks after Dillon Gabriel. So B minus. I think it's a solid class. I think you get contributors out of Graham. I think Schlesinger can contribute. I don't think he's going to be as great of a player as you would want with pick 33, but we will obviously see. You'll get contributors out of your first 3-4 picks, probably. Dylan Sampson can contribute as well, and then Shedeur, obviously, only time will tell. So B minus for the Browns. This class has some upside, but also has a lot of potential to just kind of be a nothing class in a few years, so we will see. But moving on to the next team, it will be the Cincinnati Bengals, who a lot of people have as the worst draft in this draft, and it might be. They take Shemar Stewart with their first round pick. I give it a C+. I think Shemar is a 1 to 2 guy. I think taking him top 20 is just too rich. For a player who doesn't really know how to play football right now, like, yes, he's the most athletic defensive end in NFL history, but athleticism only gets you so far when you don't really know how to utilize it. And that's what we saw at Texas A&M. There were very few plays where he really utilized his length and his athletic capabilities to their fullest, and that's why he ended up not really getting that much production and just racking up pressures. Shemar has an opportunity for this to be an A+ pick in the future if he comes out and just absolutely dominates. Do I think that will happen? Probably not, but obviously we'll have to see. Big bust potential there at pick 17, but hopefully they can retain Trey Hendrickson and he can teach Shemar Stewart a lot of what he needs to know about pass rushing in the NFL, because Shemar Stewart didn't even know how to pass rush in college. So we'll see. That pick has opportunity to either boom or bust. We will see. So I kind of split the difference with a C+. I can see the upside, but it's just too rich for me for a player who really doesn't know what he's doing right now. I do like their second round pick in Demetrius Knight. I think he's a second round linebacker. I think he is going to be a very good contributor for you to possibly start in your linebacking core, rotate in. I think he's a fine player, great athlete, good in run and pass pro. I mean, solid in each of them. Their third round pick, they did reach a little bit on Dylan Fairchild out of Georgia, the interior offensive lineman, which is a lot of people said was their biggest concern, and they took third and fifth round picks to help prioritize that, which we'll see how that works out. Obviously, late round interior linemen develop all the time in the NFL, so one of these two picks can hit, and then maybe they have a bit better of an interior offensive line next season. We'll see. Barrett Carter, developmental linebacker in the fourth. Probably not going to get much out of him year one, but we'll see about the future. And then Taj Brooks, decent backup running back in the sixth round. Just, there's a lot of boom or bust potential with this class, especially when you consider the first round pick. I think you get decent contributors out of your first two picks. Outside of that, I'm really not too sure. So D+ for the Cincinnati Bengals is my final grade. I just don't know how this draft is going to shake out, and I really just don't think they got as many difference makers as they could with their picks. So we'll see. If Shemar Stewart hits, though, this could be a way better class. We'll have to see. And now, moving on, it is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were the first big team to pass up on Shedeur Sanders in this draft, and all the way in the first round, pick 21. They instead took Derek Harmon, who I give a B- just because, for me, it's just a bit early for Derek Harmon, really. I had him more as a second round guy, but I can see him coming in and being a contributor, so I'm not going to be too harsh on it for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They definitely needed that position as well. But they don't have their second round pick. They traded it for DK Metcalf. So round 3, pick 83, they picked Caleb Johnson. This is a lot more where I thought Caleb Johnson should have gone in round 3. So good value there. I did not get much second round hype with him. I think he's just too stiff of a runner and kind of scheme dependent. But he can absolutely eat in this offense. We'll see if he gets the RB1 rule. Jack Sawyer in the 4th, I think is great value. When he was getting projected a few months ago in first round mocks, I was not about it. But 4th round, you can absolutely sell me on Jack Sawyer. I think he can be a rotational pass rusher for them. Obviously, they're very good at developing the edge position, so Jack Sawyer can while not having the physical capabilities, maybe he can develop more on the technical side of things and become a decent rotational edge rusher for them. Will Howard is the next real pick of note here. I think he can possibly be a starter for them. I had him as my QB4 going into the draft. If you guys watched that quarterback ranking video, I don't think he's a long-term starter at all, but I think he can be a short-term starter for the team, and maybe if they need a tank commander this season, he can be that one, but I don't think the Steelers are in the business of tanking, so we'll have to see with Will Howard in that not great-looking QB room for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But other than that, I don't know if you're getting much contributors out of this draft class. I think you're getting big contributors out of your top three, and I think you got great value on Will Howard. So B minus. I think there could have been a lot more room for improvement with this draft, but I think it's good enough for where the Steelers are, and it will probably keep them around that 9-8 season. So we'll see with the Pittsburgh Steelers what they do, if they finally pull the plug and reset everything, or if they continue to be mediocre. We'll have to see. But this draft, B minus. It's solid. I think they could have done better, but you get some decent contributors. So yeah. And now moving on to the Baltimore Ravens, who easily had the best draft in this division. They get Malachi Starks with their number 27 pick. Safety out of Georgia, one of the most talented players in this draft in the back end. They benched Marcus Williams multiple times last season, and they are really looking to make sure that first half of the season defense is not the defense moving forward. They improved heavily in the second half of the season, but to make sure that their defense doesn't look like that again, they get Malachi Starks to shore up the back end so that those passing numbers are a little less inflated against that secondary this season. I think he's a very, very good player. I think he's a great deep safety, and I think they will enjoy him being back there making plays on the ball as he does. And then we get to Mike Green. Real bad situation with the off the field stuff. I mean, you guys saw I had him as a top 10 player in the entire draft class. So, I mean, this is phenomenal value when you're just talking about the football player. But there's more than just the football player with Mike Green. Obviously, sexual assault allegations, big thing. So he falls out of the first round and almost out of the second before the Ravens scooped him up. So you wonder how this looks for the organization, but on a purely football standpoint, this is one of the biggest steals of the draft. Top 10 talent at the end of the second round in Mike Green, and I think he fits the scheme greatly. I mean, if you guys saw my final mock draft, I had Mike Green going to the Ravens just in the first round, not the second. But I think he fits the scheme well. I think he can be a great contributor as long as he keeps his nose clean. So if everything off the field is fine with Mike Green, then I think you got an absolute steal. The rest of the draft is fine. It's not great. Emory Jones can be a decent contributor on the offensive line. It looks like they might be looking to just move him inside to help shore up that interior offensive line, which they lost a few pieces to. Teddy Buchanan was a very big riser from the combine. He had a great combine performance. In terms of the actual linebacker stuff, he's got a little ways to go. Other than that, I feel like this draft class is kind of just carried by the first two, but those first two have heavy star potential for this defense, which needed heavy upgrades, so they went and upgraded that. I mean, they upgraded the kicker position as well, which held them back a few times last year, so we'll see if Tyler Loop can beat out Justin Tucker. Other than that, they got some decent backup players with some decent upside. LeJontay Wester can be a good return guy for you. Emory Jones, possible contributor on the interior offensive line, and then obviously Malachi Starks and Mike Green. Great 1-2 combo at the top, pending off the field issues with Mike Green. So A- for the Ravens. Would have been higher if I feel like they got better players later in the draft, but they still get some decent contributors, especially at the top end. Now moving on to the AFC South. Firstly, starting off with the team with the number 1 pick, the Tennessee Titans. They selected, obviously, Cam Ward out of Miami. I gave this pick an A. It was the obvious pick. I did say originally that I wouldn't take Cam Ward number 1, but I came around to it. You need quarterback. You take the best quarterback in the draft. Good job, Tennessee. We've been talking about this pick for a while now, so I feel like there's nothing more that needs to be said, although maybe ESPN should talk about this pick more instead of just showing Shedeur Sanders highlights for half the duration of Cam Ward being picked. So, Cam Ward, quarterback, just has a lot of upside, has a lot of things he needs to work on. He's not as polished as really any of the first round picks or the first overall picks we've seen at quarterback over the past decade, but he has as much potential as any of them. So it's still there with Cam Ward. I think he can be a good player for Tennessee. We'll see how he develops, and we'll see how he plays in the NFL. And then their second round pick, they went Oluwafemi Oladejo out of UCLA, a linebacker converted to edge, who a lot of people were kind of split on. Some people had him as a fourth round kind of flyer athlete. Some people had him as a second round player. Tennessee took him in the second round. Whether it's a reach is up to you. I didn't really get too much tape on him, but he has some potential, and they did have a heavy need off the edge, so they addressed that. And then in the third round, they get Kevin Winston out of Penn State, which is great value at him. As a 1-2, he falls due to injury concerns. He can be a great sure tackler for you with some coverage upside at the safety position, which they also needed. I feel like they reached a little bit on Chimere Dike in the fourth round, but they also got Gunnar Helm in a pretty good range there. Alec Iomanner, they as well get in the fourth round, who I thought was a more late 2, early 3rd guy. So I feel like that's pretty good value there, especially if you took him in the same division as Travis Hunter. So who knows? Maybe history repeats itself, and every time they match up, he just dominates. But we'll see. Alec Iomanner has a lot of potential, but man, his floor is really low. So we'll see with Iomanner. Other than that, I mean, Khalil Mullings late as a power back possible. So Titans, I feel like, I mean, you got your quarterback, you got a developmental edge, you got a probable starting strong safety. You got Alec Iomanner, who can be a high upside receiver 3-4 for you. I gave this an A-. I think you get some good contributors here. Gunnar Helm as well, adding to that, and possibly even Khalil Mullings. So yeah, I think you get your possible franchise quarterback, get some contributors, get some help around him, especially on your defense as well. So A- for the Tennessee Titans. I think this is a pretty good draft for them. And now getting to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who did sell the farm to trade up for Travis Hunter. Maybe not the farm, but they gave up their second round pick next year to move from 5 to 2 to take the best player in the draft, and I am all for it. A+ for their first round pick in Travis Hunter. I think he's going to be an absolute stud for you, and you pair him up with Brian Thomas on offense, and Trevor Lawrence is sitting pretty back there with his targets he has to throw to. Obviously, he has some work to do himself, but job's easier for him now for sure. Travis Hunter can contribute. I think they're going to play him full-time at receiver and corner. We'll see, but I think that's their plan. I think that's why they traded up to 2 to get him. I think he'll play mostly receiver at first, but I think he'll play some corner for them as well, as their secondary is not looking too great, at least before they got Travis Hunter. But they also went and got Caleb Branshaw out of Tulane. We'll see how much he plays with how that secondary is looking. I think they got great value on Wyatt Milam in the 3rd round. I had Milam as a 2nd round interior guy. I wanted the Colts to draft him, but he goes to the Jags, so oh well. I think he can be a good starter on the interior offensive line for you, depending on how that shakes out in training camp with how that interior line is looking. And then they get Bashal Tutin in the 4th round, who I think is pretty good value in the 4th. I don't think he's a starting running back, but I think he can be a solid change of pace guy for them. Super speedster, really outside zone specialist in terms of vision, but he has some home run potential for them. I think Jack Kaiser can be a possible starting linebacker for you in the 4th, so good value there. But of course, he might just be a solid backup. And then other than that, nothing crazy. They get LaQuint Allen as a nice receiving option in the 7th round. I gave this draft a B. I love the Travis Hunter pick. After that, It's not fantastic, but I think they got some decent contributors. So yeah, and then obviously Travis Hunter kind of headlines the whole thing. So B grade for the Jags. I think it's a fine draft. I think you nailed the first round pick, and yeah. Next up will be my Indianapolis Colts. They selected Tyler Warren, my dream pick for them at 14. He's going to be a absolute amazing weapon in this offense. I mean, just imagine lining up in the backfield with Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, and Tyler Warren. The possibilities are endless. Shane Steichen, make it work. So love that pick. We needed tight end. I mean, our tight ends last year were just really not great, just not giving us what we needed. And Tyler Warren gives us everything we need. He's a great blocker. He can catch super well. He's a fine route runner at the tight end position, and he can play in the backfield as well. So A+ pick in the first round for sure. Not as big of a fan as the second round pick. I think JT was more of a late second guy. We took him in like the mid second. So I think we did go a little early on JT Tuimoloau, and I feel like he's the kind of edge rusher Ballard has drafted in the past where it just really doesn't work out. Names coming to mind are Ben Benogu, Kamoko Toure, guys like that who just get drafted by Ballard and show some potential but never really turn into any big contributors. Justin Wally in the third round I feel like was a bit early as well. We get Jalen Travis as offensive tackle depth. I like that. I like DJ Giddens in the 5th round. I feel like this is fine value. This is a round where I thought he should go. I think he can be an excellent complement to Jonathan Taylor. We get Riley Leonard in the 6th. I'm happy with that. I think Leonard can be a solid backup option in case our 2 possible starting quarterbacks go down. Tim Smith and then Hunter Wohler. So overall, outside of the first round pick, I'm not the biggest fan of this draft. I feel like we reached a little bit on Tuimoloau and Justin Wally. Travis has nice tackle depth. We got a decent RB2, QB3, and then some depth guys. I don't think this is a fantastic draft, but I think it's fine enough, and we have some great, obviously the first round pick is amazing, and then some decent contributors in the mid to late range. So B- for me. Fine draft. Could have been better though. And yeah. And then finally, the Houston Texans, who traded out of the first round with the New York Giants. They ended up trading down to 34, where they took Jaden Higgins with their second round pick, their first pick of the draft. I mean, they're just building the tallest outside receiving core you've ever seen. You have Nico Collins and now Jaden Higgins. And I think you could say the skill set's redundant with Higgins and Collins, but they don't really play the same. Higgins is more of a slower, like more stiffer runner. Nico Collins is more fluid and better overall route runner. And I think Higgins is more of a solid, just consistent option for CJ Stroud, while Collins is the more number 1 X receiver kind of guy. And then Ariante Ursary to help with that tackle situation they have going on there. Jalen Knoll in the 3rd round I think is a lot better of a spot for Knoll than what people are saying like early 2nd. I just couldn't get down with for Knoll, but he goes in the 3rd, which I think is fine. Woody Marks out of USC can be a nice receiving back. They draft Graham Mertz actually, which I actually kind of liked his tape. Without the injury, I probably would have had him as a 7th round graded quarterback. He's got tools. He's just not really refined in any metric. He was more of a 1-read guy. In a clean pocket, he can actually operate pretty well. He's got a decent arm, decent accuracy. But other than that, this draft was pretty okay. I think you get solid contributors out of Higgins. I think Ursary, it's a little early for him in the 2nd round. I don't know if he's going to win a starting job for you or be really great at all year 1. So we'll see. Jalen Knoll, I think he can be a solid contributor. Other than that, nothing crazy. So I did give them a B-. I think offensive line is still a big need for this team, and we'll see how CJ Stroud plays behind that offensive line this year, whether it continues to hinder them or maybe they bounce back. We'll see. So B- for the Houston Texans. there. And then now on to the AFC East. We have the New England Patriots, who at pick 4 took Will Campbell, offensive lineman out of LSU. I gave it a C. If you watched my top 50 prospects, I gave my thoughts on Will Campbell. I think he's a first round guard. They're going to play him at left tackle. I don't think he's a tackle. I don't know how well it's going to go. We'll see. I mean, the guy's got the attitude. Like, if there's anything that wanted me to upgrade this rating, it was his attitude. He loves the game. He's passionate for it. So I don't doubt the mentals with Will Campbell at all. And he's definitely a Patriots kind of player. But I do doubt the tape at left tackle at LSU. It did not seem like NFL franchise left tackle to me. It looked like franchise left guard to me. I don't know. I think obviously at least you have flexibility. If he does struggle, you can just slide him inside. But I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan. I think if you take him to play left tackle, it needs to be outside of the top 10 for me. But they take him at number 4 to play left tackle. Not the biggest fan. He can absolutely be a starting left tackle in the NFL. I just don't think he's going to be. But I can always be proven wrong. So I give it a C. Not the biggest fan. But I am a big fan of the entire rest of the draft. TreVeyon Henderson in the second round. Great value at him as a late 1, early 2. I love TreVeyon Henderson. Real home run hitter. Can be an excellent complement to Ramondre Stevenson as they split carries. And you don't even have to hand TreVeyon Henderson a starting NFL running back role. He gets to split carries again. Ease into it. Obviously, medicals have been concerned. He's never really taken a number 1 running back role at Ohio State. But he has potential to. I love that pick for New England. Kyle Williams in the 3rd round, I think, is fine value. Jared Wilson in the 3rd round is fine value. I think out of your top 4 picks, you are getting contributors at all positions of need for the Patriots. They get Craig Woodson in the 4th round, who I know a lot of people liked. And then you get Braden Swinson, a 2nd round caliber player in the 5th round. Apparently he fell due to character and maturity concerns. But I mean, as long as those don't hinder him, I mean, you got a good, solid, high upside edge rusher in the 5th round. I mean, and of course they do the New England Patriots thing. They draft a kicker, and not only do they draft a kicker, they draft a long snapper in the 7th round. Julian Ashby out of Vanderbilt. What a Patriots draft. Took the tackle in the 1st, got a bunch of mid-round playmakers who will probably end up being amazing because that's just how the Patriots operate, and then got a steal in the 5th round at edge rusher, and then took some special teams guys who will no doubt be great. So A+ draft for the New England Patriots. I mean, just phenomenal. Outside of their first pick, I love everything about it. I think you got contributors. I think the number 1 priority going into this draft is help out Drake May, and they did exactly that. And not only did they do that, they also helped out the defense as well. So phenomenal draft for the New England Patriots. A+ for sure. And now the New York Jets. On more of a different note, I like their 1st round pick, not so much the rest of the draft. So Armand Membu at pick 7, I think he was my 9th or 8th ranked player, so fine value there. I love building up the offensive line for whoever your future quarterback is. Probably not Justin Fields, but obviously we'll see. So I give that pick an A. I think it's a fine selection. Mason Taylor in the 2nd round. I'm also not a Mason Taylor guy. I had him, I will be full disclosure, I had him as a 5th round grade. He's a developmental tight end prospect. He's a horrible blocker. He's not a good route runner. He's not good after the catch. He just has solid hands, and he has upside because he's relatively athletic. I do not like this pick in the 2nd round. I don't think he's going to be a great contributor to start off. I mean, he'll probably play for them because their tight end room is so horrible, but I don't think he's going to be as good as you think he's going to be, at least not year 1. But they turn it around and have a good third round pick in Azareye'h Thomas, corner out of Florida State, who I think that is good value for. And then they turn it around again and reach on Arian Smith in the fourth, who's probably just a return guy in the NFL. I highly doubt he will catch 50% of the passes Justin Fields throws his way. I'm pretty sure he had like an 18% drop percentage at Georgia. Guy I watch on YouTube, James Foster, with the funniest comparison I've ever heard. He compared him to Garrett Wilson wearing oven mitts, which I thought was pretty funny. But yeah, Arian Smith, not a great catcher of the football, and I think it's a bit early to take a return guy in the fourth round. And then they get Malachi Moore, who can be a good possible slot guy for them, safety at Alabama in the fourth round, and then get some depth guys in the fifth. So overall, real polarizing draft for me. I like their first and third round picks. Other than that, not really the biggest fan, but I do think you're getting a contributor out of Membu. I think you're getting a contributor out of Azareye'h. Arian Smith can be a decent return guy, and then I think Mason Taylor can possibly return this investment a few years down the line, but I just don't see him being a great starter out the gate at this tight end room, but we'll see. I gave the draft a C+. I think you get a great start at tackle, but other than that, just not the biggest fan of the moves they made, but I can see this being better than how I graded it, especially if Mason Taylor works out, but we'll see. Moving on to the Miami Dolphins. Kenneth Grant in the first round. Loved Kenneth Grant, played against him in high school. Fantastic to see this guy go as a top 15 pick in the NFL draft. I think the number one issue with the Dolphins coming into this was their line, and they addressed that with their first two picks, taking Kenneth Grant and then Jonah Savaiinaea. I gave the Kenneth Grant pick a B. I had him more as a 1 to 2 guy. I think it's just early for Kenneth Grant, but I applaud the ability to address the trenches. So I am fine with Kenneth Grant. He can be a great nose tackle for you, and just really beef up that interior defensive line, which was looking very bleak before this selection. And then obviously get Jonah Savaiinaea to probably play interior lineman for them out of Arizona. I think it is a bit early. I had him more as a third round guy. They take him at the top of the second. So not my favorite value there, but he's a fine player who I think can be a good player for you. And then they trade out of like the mid rounds and then have a bunch of late day 3 selections, which probably won't amount to much. So I like their first 2 picks, but the rest of the draft, I just don't really see the vision. So I give it a C+. I'm not going to spend too much time on this draft. It's pretty cut and dry. Contributors are the first 2 picks, and then depth guys later. This secondary is in trouble for sure. So we'll see what they do. I do like the ability to prioritize the lines, but there's still some big holes on this team, and not really super excited for this team's future, but we'll see. Draft C+, with some upside with their first round pick in Kenneth Grant and their second round pick in Jonah Savaiinaea. Now, moving on to the Buffalo Bills, the final team in the AFC East. They took Maxwell Hairston in the first round. I think this is great range for Maxwell Hairston. I think he can be a great player for them, corner out of Kentucky. So I like that. I don't like them trading up in the second round for TJ Sanders. I think it's just early for TJ. He's more of a Derek Harmon light, where he kind of just does everything pretty well, but doesn't really stand out in any one way. So I had him more as a third round guy. They trade up in the second for him, so I don't love that. But I do love the value of Landon Jackson in the third round, a second round edge rusher with a lot of upside going in the third round. So I think that's a great player there. Deion Walker, boom or bust player in the fourth, but he could boom, and that could be great value in the fourth round. Obviously, you need help on that interior defensive line, and they definitely prioritize that. I mean, their first 5 picks were all defense with Jordan Hancock as well. And then their first offensive player, they took Jackson Hawes, the big blocking tight end out of Georgia Tech. I think he'd be a great contributor for you as well as a blocking tight end, so that can be good. They take Dorian Strong. I think they get really good value with him in the 6th round. I don't think he deserved to go in the 6th. I had him more as a 4th round to 5th round guy, but great value of him in the 6th round. And then Chase Lunt, who could possibly be a contributor on the offensive line for you in the 6th, and then Caden Prather out of Maryland. I gave this draft a B+, same as their first round pick grade with Maxwell Hairston. I think you get contributors out of Harrison Sanders, Jackson, and possibly Deion Walker, as well as Jackson Hawes and possibly Dorian Strong. So I think you got a lot of good players. I don't think you get any great players. I think Harrison has the potential to be a great player, but I don't think he ever will be. I think he'll be a good, solid outside corner for you. But we'll see. I think you get a bunch of good players, so B+, good draft for the Buffalo Bills. And now we will move on to the AFC West, the final AFC division. Las Vegas Raiders picked at 6. They took Ashton Jeanty, running back out of Boise State. You're taking running back pretty high here, and I don't think Jeanty's this insane running back prospect, but with this draft class, one of the best picks you definitely could have made there at that position. I think he's going to be a great contributor for you behind that offensive line that they do address later in the draft. And then I loved getting Jack Bech in the second round, near the end of the second round even. I think he's going to be a great player, and honestly, he's one of my sleeper picks to go off at receiver this year. I think him and Geno Smith will have a great connection. I think him and Geno Smith will have sort of that JSN connection they had last year where Geno and JSN kind of just went off. And then Darian Porter in the third round. I love this pick as well. I had him as a second round guy. Super high potential athletic monster at the corner position. You get Caleb Rogers in the third, reached on him a little bit, and then Charles Grant at the end of the third round, a high upside offensive tackle prospect out of William & Mary, who can sit and develop for a few years before possibly taking over for Colton Miller if he leaves. We'll see. Grant has a lot of technical stuff to get down, but the potential is all there for him. And then you get Dante Thornton in the fourth round, who could be a high upside receiving prospect for you. Super speedy. Obviously played at Tennessee, so you got to be speedy to play there. I believe he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, but incredibly fast. Got to work on the route tree, of course, as all receivers do coming out of Tennessee. But he can be a super fun player for you if he hits. Tonka Hemingway, JJ Pegues, and then some random quarterbacks at the back end of day 3. I gave this draft an A. Initially, I gave it an A+, but I think the late drafts last some of the better steals you normally see from A+ drafts, but their start of the draft, I mean, their first 5 selections, Jeanty, Bech, Porter, Rogers, Grant, I think are all great selections. I mean, even Dante Thornton in the 4th round has some upside, and then JJ Pegues as well in the 6th. A draft for the Raiders. I love it. I think phenomenal picks all around, especially on the early days for the Raiders. I think they knocked it out of the park here, and I think they are a contributor to significantly improve, especially with Geno at the helm now next season. And now getting to the Denver Broncos, which will undoubtedly be one of my more controversial draft grades. I gave this draft a D, and it starts with their first round pick. I gave a C- with Jahdae Barron out of Texas. Now, you know, I was lower on Jahdae Barron. I had a second round grade on him. I don't really see the upside in Jahdae Barron. I think he's a solid slot zone corner going to a man-heavy system in Denver. We'll see how it works out. He didn't show a whole lot of man at Texas, at least not a whole lot of promise. We'll see. I don't really love the scheme fit. I know he'll step in and be the starter day one at the slot position for them because they have Moss and Surtain on the outside. But yeah, I just, with the holes on offense, you have a rookie quarterback. Well, you have a second-year quarterback. I think the number one things with second-year quarterbacks is always just to keep giving them help so they don't have those dreaded sophomore slumps that we always see from these quarterbacks. We'll see. They ended up taking RJ Harvey with their second-round pick. Just way too early for RJ Harvey, in my opinion. And then also too early on their third-round pick in Pat Bryant. I think this draft would have gone much better if you had just taken either Amarion Hampton or Matthew Golden at pick 20 and then got a solid slot corner down in the board in the second or third round. They got Savion Jones. Quay Robinson is pretty good value in the 4th, and then they take a punter and a backup tight end. I don't think Harvey's going to be great. I think Jahdae Barron will be a fine player for you, but I don't, again, there's some bust potential with the scheme fit, in my opinion. RJ Harvey, I mean, Just not a second round running back for me at all. I don't think he's a starting running back in the NFL day one, and that's what they drafted him to be. We'll see. I think he's more of a complimentary back, but I don't know. Pat Bryant as well, too early. I had him more as a 5th round guy. I think he's a just stiff outside receiver with not a lot of separation ability. But we'll see with the Denver Broncos. But I'm going to be honest, not a big fan of this draft at all. It gets a D from me. I think you get a solid contributor out of your first round pick. And right now, that's it. I think you get a decent second round running back, but in the second round, just not great value. And then a wide receiver 4 or 5 in Pat Bryant in the third. I don't know. Just not a big fan of this draft. I think there were much better ways to go about it than they did, so they get a D from me in my rankings. Now the LA Chargers, I gave them a B, and I gave them an A for their first round pick with Omarion Hampton, running back out of North Carolina. I would have taken Hampton in the teens in this draft, to be honest. I think he's a fantastic running back prospect and deserved to go in the first round for sure. He slides past Denver, who I thought would be automatic to take him. They didn't. The Chargers get good value here. Yes, I know they have needs on their interior defensive line and offensive line, or not on their interior defensive line. They need other positions too. But Hampton can be he can help Jim Harbaugh establish what he's wanted to establish, which is a nice run game behind a good offensive line. And then they get Trey Harris in the second round. I think this is fine value for Trey Harris at the end of the second. He can be a decent outside receiver for Justin Herbert. So, yeah, Trey Harris, wide receiver at Ole Miss there. And then Jamari Caldwell to help that interior defensive line, which is not looking great. And then day 3, Kyle Kennard, Lambert Smith, Oronde Gadsden's pretty good value. And then R.J. Mickens, pretty good value in the 6th. So it's a B for me for this draft class. I think Hampton is going to be a star running back for this team, especially behind their offensive line that they've built. Trey Harris is a high upside receiver in the 2nd. Jamari Caldwell can be a good contributor for them in the 3rd. Outside of that, not much. So I think they get good contributors out of the first 3, and then some good depth with some good high-end upside down the board with Gadsden and Mickens. So we'll see. So I gave this draft a B. I think it's solid, just good overall draft. Now the Kansas City Chiefs, and we wonder why they're good every year. Because every year, they crush the draft. And yet again, they do. They get my number 3 ranked prospect, Josh Simmons, at number 32 in the draft due to injury concerns. I never wanted this to happen. It always ended up in my mind, though, and guess what? It happened. One of my favorite players of this entire draft cycle goes to my least favorite team in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs, because they just keep on winning because, guess what? They keep on drafting well. A+, probably the best first-round pick in the entire first round in terms of pure value for the Chiefs, at least in my opinion. Omar Norman-Lott at the end of the second, I think is good. He has really good pass rush upside. He can be great alongside Chris Jones. And then Ashton Gillotte was one of my guys in this draft. I love Gillotte. I thought he was a second-round player. They get him in the 3rd. I think he can be a great contributor to that pass rush for Kansas City. They get Noel Williams, who I know a lot of people liked a decent bit, in the 3rd. And then they get Jalen Royals in the 4th, Jeffrey Bassa in the 5th, and then they get good value on Brashard Smith in the 7th round. I mean, what more good things can you say about this draft? You get potential good impact players with every single pick of the draft. There's not much more you can ask for in a draft, and they just might have had the best draft class. They got, in my opinion, a future all-pro franchise left tackle. They get a high upside pass rushing specialist at the defensive line position. They get a good high floor, lower upside edge rusher in the 3rd. Possible starting corner in the 3rd. Just definitely a starting receiver in the 4th. Possible starting linebacker in the 5th, and then a good contributing rotational running back in the 7th. Just a phenomenal draft by the Kansas City Chiefs, and I hate that I have to say that year in and year out, but they just keep doing it. Great draft, A+ for the Kansas City Chiefs, and yeah. Moving on past that, we are moving to the NFC and the NFC North with the Chicago Bears, who took Colston Loveland with the number 10 pick. I'm giving this pick a B. I initially had it as more of a C+, but he fits their offense more, especially with Cole Kmet already being there. So Colson Loveland gets a B. I think he's going to be a fine player for them. I've had him as a first-round tight end. Him and Cole Kmet can be a great tight end duo for Ben Johnson. And then speaking of Ben Johnson, he gets a wonderful receiver in the second round in Luther Burden, who had a true first-round grade on. He falls due to character concerns. Ryan Poles, who usually doesn't dabble with character concerns, takes Burden anyway. He's too good a value to be there in the second round. So Burden at 39 is excellent value. I think he's going to be a great player. I compared him to DJ Moore, who's already on the roster, but he'll be more of a probably more of a screen guy. I mean, the fake screens you can run, faking the screen to Burden or faking the screen to DJ Moore and then throwing it to the exact same player basically on the other side. Tons of potential with Ben Johnson here, so love that pick. Ozzy Trapilo, I like the value here. I don't know if they're going to play him on the left side to compete for that left tackle spot with Braxton Jones. We'll see, but I don't know if he can. We don't know if he can play left tackle, but I mean, there's no reason to say he can't. So we'll see. I think Shamar Turner's good value, and then they got Za Frazier as well in the 5th, who's a high upside corner, similar to Tariq Woolen from the Seattle Seahawks. All the Bears fans are really enamored with the Monangai pick. I had Monangai as a UDFA grade. He's a great pass protector, but not really much of a runner, to be honest, for me. Just not athletic at all. And then kind of benefited from poor college tackling at Rutgers. We'll see. Great pass protector, though, but yeah, overall, I give this draft a B+. I mean, your first 3 picks, I love, especially Luther Burden. I think you get a great contributor there. And then I think I like the Shamar Turner pick as well. And then Za Frazier, high upside corner in the 5th. Overall, just a really good draft for the Chicago Bears. And now the Green Bay Packers, who finally pulled the plug on receiver in the first round. Matthew Golden out of Texas. I think they get great value. He was my number 12 player, I believe. And they get him at 23. I think he's going to be a number 1 receiver in the NFL. I'm going to be honest. A lot of people say he's a number 2. I don't think so. I think he's a number 1. They get Belton in the 2nd, which is more of a head scratcher to me. I think you've prioritized offensive line enough, but they apparently say no. So they take Belton a little earlier than I would have wanted, but it's whatever. And then they get Savion Williams, who I think this is fine value for a player with super high upside. Super fun player with Savion. Still learning the receiver position, but I think he can be a great player. And then they take Barron Sorrell, who stayed at the draft until the 5th round, which is really, or 4th round, which was really cool to see himself get drafted. And then other than that, nothing crazy. So outside of their first pick, it's an okay draft. They got Golden. Williams is high upside. Belton can be a decent player. Don't know if he's going to play or not. We'll see. So I give it a B. I think it's a solid draft because their first round pick was great. I think Belton is a fine tackle prospect, and I think Savion has some upside. Sorrell has some upside off the edge. We'll see. So final grade is a B for the Green Bay Packers. Now the Vikings, another draft I'm not too big of a fan of. I give it a C-. And starting with our first round pick, I give it a C with Donovan Jackson. I don't know, man. I mean, you prioritized offensive line in the free agency heavily. NFL teams are known for getting good interior linemen down the board. And you take a player I had a 3rd round grade on in the 1st round. I just don't love it. Especially when Malachi Starks is on the board and your safety room is looking bleak. Very, very bleak. I think he was probably the best player available for them to select, and they didn't select him. They go Donovan Jackson instead. I'm just not really a fan of it. And then they don't even draft in a secondary player for the rest of the draft. The secondary is honestly kind of scaring me for this upcoming season, especially at the safety spot. We'll see. Maybe they believe in their guys, but I don't know. They get Ty Felton out of Maryland, Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, Kobe King, and Gavin Bartholomew. I give this draft a C-. Not many picks. I don't like their 1st round pick. I think they could have gotten better players at all these spots, really. So C- for the Vikings. At least the offensive line is full, but I don't know if Donovan Jackson's a surefire Pro Bowl guard that you take in the first round. We'll see. And now the Detroit Lions, with the first round pick, they took another my guy. They took Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State, the big run stuffer, the best run stopping lineman in this draft class. They needed defensive line, and they did go defensive line. I thought they would go on the edge. They didn't. But Tyleik Williams is a great player. I think they got a good value on him. He was my second ranked interior defensive lineman in the whole class. Then they get Tate Ratledge, great value in the second round. As well, they needed a guard, and they got a guard for sure. I think he's going to be a fine starter on that interior line, and their offensive line is fully put back together once again. And then they trade a pretty hefty price to come up for Isaac TeSlaa. Obviously, I made a whole video on Isaac TeSlaa saying he could be a big sleeper wide receiver in this draft, and he's not a sleeper anymore going in the third round, that's for sure. I mean, he has super high upside, but just not a lot of production in Arkansas. Probably should have gotten thrown the ball more, but I mean, you trade what did they trade? Two other third round picks to come up to select him. I think that's just too much. I think you took him a bit too early. Like, he has some upside, and I think he's a great sleeper player, and I think he fits the Lions culture. But we'll see. I think it's a little early for him, but I could see the vision there. They get Miles Frazier in the 5th, which is also good value, and then the rest of the draft, they got some edge guys, Hassanine, Dan Jackson, and Dominic Lovett. I give this draft a B. I really like their 2 first picks in round 1 and 2. TeSlaa in the 3rd round I'm a little iffy on, because I like TeSlaa. I think he's a good sleeper receiver, but I think it's just too early and too much value to give up. And then the rest of the draft is meh. So B grade for the Lions. Good draft. Nothing crazy though. And then the Carolina Panthers. Speaking of nothing crazy, this is crazy, because A+ draft for the Carolina Panthers. Tetairoa McMillan at pick 8. He was my number 5 ranked player in the draft. I think he can be an excellent connection with Bryce Young. I mean, he goes from one 5'9" quarterback to another in Fafita, but except Young is actually good at throwing the football. At least he was last year. So I love this for the Panthers offense. Tet McMillan at Arizona, great. Really glad they didn't take Jalen Walker here instead, because in the second round they get Nick Scorton, which is excellent value for Scorton. I had him as a 1 and 2 guy. I think he'd be a great player for you. And then they get Princely Umanmielen with some really good value as well. High upside designated pass rusher. And then they get a big my guy, Trevor Etienne. A good running back prospect in my opinion. I think he was severely underrated by a lot of people. I love his vision. He's got speed. He's got agility. He can make people miss. He can bounce off tackles. I think he may not have 3 down upside, but you pair him with Chuba Hubbard. I think he's an excellent complementary back, and I think he will surprise some people. And I think they got a great 1-2 punch at running back now. They take Ransom in the 4th, Cam Jackson in the 5th, which is pretty good value there, and then Mitchell Evans as well in the 5th is pretty good value, and then another good value pick in Jimmy Horn, who can be a returner and a contributor on offense for you. So I think you get contributors with nearly all of your picks in this draft. Maybe except for like someone like Mitchell Evans or Ransom. But I love this draft. A+ or A grade for their first round pick. Scorton, Umanmielen, great value. Etienne, great value. Evans, Horn, Jackson, great value. A+ for the Carolina Panthers. I love this draft, and they are certainly on the path to make a playoff push in the next upcoming seasons for sure. Now the Saints. This draft I am higher on than a lot of people. I love the Kelvin Banks pick at 9. I think it's the right move, to be honest. You probably play him either at guard or right tackle, and then, maybe you slide Penning inside, but they might just play him at guard, which I think he can be an unbelievable guard at the NFL level. We'll see. Tyler Shuck, it's just too early for in the top of the second round. He's got some upside, but man, his low lights are really low. But whatever. They took him over Shedeur. A little head scratcher there, but Shuck, they view him as a possible starter, so they take him in the second round. I think he can be a decent quarterback. He's got the tools, just needs to develop more, needs to get better in the decision-making kind of side of things. They get Vernon Broughton in the 3rd round, which I think is good value. Stutzman in the 4th is good value. And then Devin Neal, I love the pick in the 6th round, especially with an aging Alvin Kamara who's not always healthy. I think Devin Neal can take up the starting running back role pretty well. As you guys know, I'm a big my guy with Devin Neal. He's my number 4 ranked running back prospect in this entire draft class. I think he's a 3-down back. He can catch really well. He may not be a great athlete, but he's got good vision. He can bounce off tackles, make people miss. I love Devin Neal, and getting him in the 6th round I think is an absolute steal. So I think you get contributors out of Banks, a possible franchise quarterback in Tyler Shuck. We'll see. He needs to develop a little bit. I think you get good value on Stutzman, Riley. Great, fantastic value on Devin Neal as well. I think he has starting running back potential. So yeah, B+ for the Saints. I actually like this draft a lot more than most people. Probably because I like Devin Neal a lot more than most people, but we'll see. So yeah, that's the Saints draft. I like it a lot. B+. And now the Falcons. They take Jalen Walker with their first pick. I had him as a more 1-2 guy, but I think it's a decent fit. I think he has a lot of upside, and if he hits, I mean, you got a great player. Then James Pierce, I think it's fine value for the player. The trade, you're giving up way too much for a player like James Pierce. Not to say James Pierce is a bad player. I think he's a solid player, but I think he's a more, I don't know, I didn't like him as much as a lot of people. I didn't have him as a 1st-round prospect. I know a lot of people did. I had him more as a 1-2 guy, but he has some upside. I just think he's kind of a one-trick pony right now. He's kind of a speed rush, and his bull rush is really going to be nullified in the NFL for the most part. I think he needs to get better with his hands. But yeah, I think it's great value for Xavier Watson the 3rd, though. I think he's a starting caliber safety. Then they go and get Billy Bowman as well in the 4th. So I give this draft a B. I give the Jalen Walker pick a B-. I give the James Pierce pick a C+. I think James Pierce is going to be a better player day 1. We'll have to see, though, because Jalen Walker is really kind of boom or bust. We'll have to see. I had them both as more 1-2 guys, but I think great value for Xavier Watts. I also had him as a 1-2 guy. They get him in the 3rd round. Fantastic value there. So B, I think Walker and Pierce can be good contributors. I think Watts is going to be a solid starter at safety. Bowman has some potential there. I know there's some Billy Bowman lovers out there. Brett Coleman and such. So B grade for the Atlanta Falcons. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I gave a B+, but let me tell you, it's not for their 1st-round pick. I gave a C- for the Emeka Egbuka pick. I think he's a okay he's a solid wide receiver prospect. I had him as a 2nd-round grade. I don't think he's a 1st-round receiver, especially not in the top 20. I don't think he's ever gonna return the investment in terms of upside. I think he'll be a solid slot player for them. But, I mean, you have Jalen McMillan, who showed promise last year. Trey Palmer. I just feel like this was just, you had much bigger needs than taking a luxury, maybe not luxury, but a 3rd wide receiver. I know Godwin's had his injury problems, but you just extended him long term. Mike Evans possibly could be on the way out. That's what this move could mean. Maybe he's looking at his final seasons. I thought he's going to retire for the past few seasons now, but we'll see. Other than that pick, though, Benjamin Morrison, love the pick, love the value in the 2nd round, love the value of Jacob Parrish in the 3rd, and love the value of David Walker in the 4th. So, outside of the 1st-round pick, 2, 3, and 4 rounds picks, I think you get great value on all of them. I think they're all going to be contributors, especially David Walker. I think he fits their scheme pretty well. It could be a great pick for them. Tez Johnson in the 7th. I'm going to be honest with you guys. If I was a GM, I wouldn't draft Tez Johnson. Just the height, weight, speed, not really a fan. He could be a good return guy. We'll see how his body holds up in the NFL. Obviously, we've said this about players before. See Devontae Smith, Jordan Addison, about their height, weight, speed, and they turned out to be just fine. So we'll see with Tez Johnson. 7th-round pick, flyer for the Buccaneers. It's not that big of a investment, so it's a fine pick. But yeah, B+ for the Buccaneers. If their 1st-round pick was better, this pick would be an A, or this draft would be an A, but mid-rounds, I love it. 1st round, not so much, so we'll see, but I think they got some really good players in this draft. Now, the New York Giants. I'm going to start it off by saying, yeah, I give the Jackson Dart pick an F. there's just no way I would even consider drafting this guy in the first round ever, really, in any draft class, even this one. I had him as a 3rd to 4th round grade. He's a player that, like, I wouldn't have touched him in the, I mean, maybe I start to think about him in the back end of the 2nd, but I wouldn't take him until the 3rd round, at least. But not only do you take him in the 1st, you trade up to take him in the 1st. I don't know. I really just can't get behind it. This is a quarterback that played at a schemed up offense, was very one read and run. Good accuracy, solid tools, I'll give him that, but just really poor pocket presence and management. Drops his eyes at the first sign of pressure. Really just not great at feeling where to move in the pocket at all. He stares down his first read. He doesn't really go through his progressions well. I mean, he just needs developing in all assets of being an NFL quarterback. And to trade up and then take him in the 1st round, I cannot get behind it whatsoever. Jackson Dart pick F for the New York Giants, but as you can see, I gave the draft an A-. So I love the rest of the draft. I really do. Abdul Carter at 3, the obvious pick. I mean, the package with him, Burns, and Thibodeaux all at once is just going to be insane. They picked up the 5th-year option on Kayvon Thibodeaux, so it looks like they're probably not trading him. But I think the blitz packages you can bring out with these guys is going to be crazy, especially when you get to their 3rd round pick, Darius Alexander. Phenomenal value there. I had Darius Alexander as a 2nd round grade, almost a 1 to 2 guy, but I stuck with the 2nd round grade. They get him in the 3rd. Phenomenal value, just fantastic value. And now your pass rush is even better. I mean, they might have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL next season, and they might just have the best, to be honest. They get Cam Skattebo as well in the 4th. I think is great value as a 2nd round running back. I think he made a great compliment to Tyrone Tracy. Marcus Bowe out of Purdue. I think this is fine value for him. I was not on board with him anywhere near the 2nd round at all. I don't think he has the play strength. I think he'd be a solid backup interior lineman. Not much more than that. And then their 7th round picks are just kind of depth pieces. But everything other than the Jackson Dart pick I love about this draft. I think you get contributors with Carter, Alexander, Skattebo, and possibly even Marcus Bowe. Dart, I gave it an F. He could prove me wrong. Like, that is always an option. He could absolutely prove me wrong. But it remains to be seen. And I just would not have touched him anywhere near the 1st round, let alone trade up for him. So that is the one blemish on a otherwise fantastic draft class for the New York Giants. And I give it an A-. And now I'm against the consensus with this draft class as well. I give the Dallas Cowboys a C+. And it starts with their 1st round pick. I just don't like Tyler Booker in the 1st round, especially not at pick 12 when Matthew Golden is right there. And I'm going to be honest, this draft grade comes from a lot of what the roster needs and what they got. You get Tyler Booker, who I think can be a solid guard, but he has some bust potential. I really don't think he should have gone this high. But we'll see. I mean, Jerry's assembling the Tyler offensive line, so we'll see where it goes. I think Donovan Ezraku, this is fine value. This is around where he should have gone. Good edge rusher to pair alongside Micah Parsons. Savon Revel, I think this is good value for him. With your first 3 picks, I think you're getting starters. Booker, we'll have to see. I think Ezraku and Revel are pretty good starters. When you look at the team, the one thing you do notice is outside of CeeDee Lamb, there's not any offensive playmakers on this team at all. Like, at all, outside of CeeDee Lamb. If I was Dak Prescott, I would be heavily concerned. Yeah, you have all the time to throw the ball, but what does it matter if CeeDee Lamb is double covered and the rest of your receivers aren't really good at being receivers? Jalen Tolbert is a fine wide receiver 3/4. Him as your wide receiver 2 is not great. Kevontae Turpin is not a full-time receiver. And other than that, you have like Ryan Flournoy, Jonathan Mingo. Just not great players, and they didn't draft a single wide receiver. They got half a wide receiver in Jaden Blue. And another thing is they didn't draft a running back. Like, you're really going to roll into next season with Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders? Jaden Blue is a pass catching back. He's not a runner. And then I guess behind this offensive line that they're building, the running back should be decent, but really, I mean, you had good players on the board that you could have taken to help out this offense. And for the second year in a row, Jerry Jones just completely ignores the offensive playmaker position. And I don't know what to say. I mean, you get decent players with your first 3 picks. I think you reached on Booker and got good value on Izaraku and Revel. Jaden Blue, this is around where you should have gone, maybe a little early. Other than that, I don't think you're getting many contributors from this draft class. So, I mean, I give their first round pick a D+. I give the rest of the draft a C+. I don't love this draft. I know a lot of people have been giving it like A's, A+, I think PFF gave it. I just don't love it, to be honest. So, moving on to the Commanders. They take Josh Connerly. I am all for protecting your young quarterbacks, and they are doing that to Jaden Daniels for sure. Getting Connerly to protect him. Trey Amos in the second round is fantastic value. I had him as a 1-2 guy. They get him in the late second. Great. I think he's a starting corner for you for sure. They get Jalen Lane in the 4th, which is fine value, and then get some depth pieces in 6 and 7. Krosky Merritt has some potential to be a decent running back. I think he'd be a solid number 2 behind Brian Robinson. But overall, I mean, this draft is really just kind of carried by the first 2 picks. Other than that, nothing crazy. So I do give it a B, because I think their first 2 picks, they made the most of them. And then the rest, they got decent players. They didn't have too many picks in this draft, but they did severely overperform last season. So they get good players to their first 2 picks and shore up some big weaknesses from their team from last year. So I do like the picks. I do like the draft overall. I give it a B for the Washington Commanders. Now the Philadelphia Eagles. Jahad Campbell falls right into their lap due to medical concerns. So that's an A grade. He is he's the best off-ball linebacker in this draft with potential to moonlight on the edge. Decent value for Makuba. They get some decent, and then a ton of day 3 picks. Kyle McCord is good value, and then they hit some good developmental linemen in the 6th round. Cameron Williams, Miles Hinton, I think are great developmental guys to take shots on. I think you get good contributors with your 1st and 2nd picks and some good developmental guys in late rounds. Not much to really say about this draft because they just had a 1st and a 2nd round pick at the top. But overall, I like it. I think you got some developmental guys who can turn into some stars, Cam Williams. And then I think you get Jahad Campbell, which helps shore up your linebacking room. I mean, him beside Zach Bond is looking nice. And then Andrew Makuba in the 2nd round. B+ for the Philadelphia Eagles. And then the San Francisco 49ers to start off the NFC West, our last division. They take Mykel Williams at pick 11, edge out of Georgia. Use my edge 3, so I don't think they get... I think they take him a little early at him as a 1-2 guy, but he has very big potential. And, I mean, working with Nick Bosa, hopefully you plan to get the best out of him. They needed to take defensive line, and they took it. And then they took interior defensive line with their 2nd round pick as well, Alfred Collins out of Texas. I know Robert Saleh loves his D lineman. He loves his rotation. So getting all these defensive linemen for sure is going to help. As well in the 4th round, they get CJ West, a player who I thought was a 2nd round player. I love CJ West. The value of him in the 4th round is great. And they get Nick Martin, Upton Stout in the 3rd round. Nothing crazy there. And then they get Jordan Watkins, Jordan James, Curtis Rourke down the board. So it's a fine draft. I think the real winners here is that defensive line. I think Saleh is going to be happy with this group, and I think you get 3 really good contributors on the defensive line for this upcoming season with Williams, Collins, and CJ West. Going to be really tough to run the ball on this team with defensive line of Mykel Williams, Alfred Collins, CJ West, and Nick Bosa. And then you have Fred Warner back there. Good luck. But there are still some real big holes on this team that they didn't fill everything. So it's only a B for the San Francisco 49ers. And obviously Mykel Williams, there's a chance he just never develops, but we'll see. Now the Arizona Cardinals, I think they got the steal of the draft with Will Johnson at pick 47. My number 4 player in the whole draft. I never left the Will Johnson hype train. And because of injuries, he falls to 47. And the Cardinals nab him up. They needed secondary. They got it. And guess what? They also needed defensive line. They got it. Walter Nolan in the 1st round. I really like. I wish they made a bigger effort to protect Kyler Murray a bit better on the interior offensive line, but it did take Hayden Conner. We'll see. They get Jordan Burch, a nice developmental guy in the third. Cody Simon can be a decent linebacker for you, and then obviously Hayden Conner, possible offensive lineman contributor. Just, it's really carried by Will Johnson, this class is, to be honest. I gave their first round pick, Walter Nolan, a B. I think it's okay value for Walter Nolan. I think it is a bit early for him, but obviously there's tons of upside with him there. And then obviously Will Johnson, as long as he's healthy, and that's a big if, to be fair, from how far he fell, clearly the medicals are concerning. But the player on the field, if he's healthy, is just so good that the value at pick 47 is just too immense. So A- for the Cardinals. They get a franchise cornerstone at corner as long as the medicals check out, and then a good high upside defensive tackle as well. And then the Seattle Seahawks, A+ draft with an A+ first round pick, Gray Zabel. They took him higher than I had ranked on my big board, but it doesn't matter. I did not think John Schneider was going to go and take interior offensive lineman in the first round. He doesn't value it. At least he didn't, because first round, pick 18, they take Gray Zabel, the perfect selection for this team. As we know, Sam Darnold does not perform well under pressure, and that interior offensive line was bad, like very bad. So they get Gray Zabel, one of the best interior offensive linemen in the draft class, super high upside. Need to fix his technique a little bit, but he can be a great player for you. And then they get Nick Emanwori with great value there at 35. I think he's going to be a stellar player, especially with Mike McDonald coordinating that defense. He can do so much with Emanwori, the most athletic safety in NFL history in terms of combine. And then Elijah Arroyo, I also think is great value at pick 50. I think it's great value for Jalen Milroe in the third as well. They got Torrey Horton, and then they get Damian Martinez in the 7th round, a really good running back who I think can contribute to that running back room, as well as if he gets carries. There have been some rumors about Charbonnet or Kenneth Walker being traded. We'll see. Obviously, that hasn't happened yet, but amazing value for Martinez in the 7th round for sure. Just overall a great draft. Their first 4 picks are just phenomenal. And they get Torrey Horton in the 5th, who I know some people do like. So yeah, just A+ draft for the Seahawks, and they're looking to make a big playoff push next season. And the final team in this video is going to be the LA Rams. Not the biggest fan. I think you just took a massive reach on Terrence Ferguson. T-Ferg, he's a solid tight end. I think he's more of a number 2 instead of a number 1. They take him in the 2nd round to be a number 1. Fine, I mean, great trade value for sure. Trading out of the 1st round, I think that's great. It's just, I don't know, taking Terrence Ferguson way too high. I think they forced the need at tight end with the selection. They do get Josiah Stewart, who's a nice, decent edge rusher with decent value in the 3rd. Jarquez Hunter, Chris Paul is good value in the 5th. And then Kanata Mumfield, good value in the 7th. C-, I don't know. I think Ferguson's a decent contributor, possibly. Stewart's high upside. Jarquez Hunter can be a good number 2. And then Chris Paul can be a possible starting linebacker for you. I don't know. I don't love this draft of the Rams, really. I like the haul they got from their 1st round pick, but other than that, not the biggest fan. And then, yeah, so that's going to wrap up my 2025 NFL draft grades. If you guys did enjoy the video, be sure to like and subscribe. And, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.